Hello there and welcome back. I am Ramona. This is the Smell of Logic channel where right now we're doing paranormal, supernatural, bizarre encounters, stories taken from Reddit and people's personal encounters. Hope you are enjoying these. And let's get into it. Ready? Story 1. This may not be scary, but I will tell it. I live in the Canadian Arctic. My cousin and I were walking outside of town looking for some game to hunt, literally the only two souls for miles, when we heard a loud growl close to us. There were no animals anywhere when we heard it, but it was close. The growl only happened once, and we had to walk back into town, keeping an eye out for anything, but we saw nothing. Then another one. My grandparents' house was getting renovated, and we had to live in a different house temporarily. Most of our belongings were stored in the attic while we were in a different unit. My two aunts and I went to pick something up in the attic when we started hearing footsteps, along with the sound of a dog. We all knew nobody was in the house because we had locked it. The three of us were stuck in the attic just listening to the footsteps coming up the stairs, but we never saw anybody. It freaks us out because we watched the stairs and heard the footsteps get closer, but nothing ever happened. The activity stopped once the renovations were done, and the priest came to bless our house. It was scary because we heard 3 loud bangs in the house, and the darkness disappeared. We never experienced any activity again after the priest blessed our house. Story 2. Both of these remind me of my experience at my grandparents' house. They lived there for about 30 years, give or take. Even built the house themselves. Anyway, to sum it up, there was a lot of history in the house, and mostly bad, very traumatic shit, like several suicides and stuff. My dad was at work, and I came by to visit him. The only people home were my grandpa, who had bad hips and was not super mobile, and my uncle. At the time, my dad was seeing a woman who lived about 4 hours away, and she was on her way to stay with him for the weekend. My uncle and I were on the basement level, but in the backyard, smoking with the back door to the basement open behind me. It's an old house and not built very well, so it's very creaky, and you can clearly hear someone walking around upstairs or coming down the stairs. I hear very clearly someone walking down the stairs, and I know it's not my grandpa because he was physically unable to get up and down the stairs like that, so I'm assuming it's the woman my dad was seeing coming downstairs. I hear the footsteps get all the way down the stairs and listen to them slowly get closer until someone would be in view, and I'm looking for what I think is going to be my dad's girlfriend coming. I look after I hear the footsteps stop in the hallway that leads directly to the basement, but no one was there at all. In the same spot, I want to say a couple of weeks later, I was downstairs smoking with my dad this time. I was standing there chatting and smoking with my dad, and all of a sudden I hear this growl right behind my right ear, and I kind of jump and turn around, but mind you, I'm facing the street, so my back is to the house, and there's no way someone could have snuck up behind me. I turn to my dad, startled, and say, "Did you hear that?" And he goes, "No, what?" And I'm like, "Seriously, you didn't just hear that?" It was a loud-ass growl, and he goes, "Oh, I don't know, the neighbors have dogs, I think." And I was like, well, maybe that was it, but this sounded too close. I have had many unusual experiences, but most of them could be explained away. These two stood out because it was so remarkable and couldn't be easily explained away. However, it's interesting that both experiences are so similar. Story 3. Okay, so picture the upper level of a mansion. That it was a big rectangle and looks down on the main level like an atrium. On one side, you have an inconsequential bedroom. On the other side, there is a bathroom with a door that leads to the common area and a second door that adjoins another bedroom. That bedroom also has a door on the opposite side of the bathroom that opens up to the common area. This is a vacation rental I cleaned. I'm alone in the house, and this house is known to have something spiritual there. So I climb the stairs to clean the bathroom, and common area door to the bathroom is open, but the door to the bedroom is closed and locked. So I go around the atrium to where the bedroom door opens to the common area on the opposite side. That door also closed and locked. By now I'm cursing the last guest and walking back to the bathroom side when I realize the bathroom door locks. From the bathroom. I unlocked the door, entered the bedroom, and went to unlock the other door, but it was standing wide open. And the carpet is plush. Something had to push that door open, and it's not easy. I was admittedly a little freaked out. I dropped my cleaning stuff when I saw the second door open wide, second locked door open wide. Story 4. Several years ago, I was getting ready for work one morning, and it was still dark. My ex-boyfriend was sleeping, so I was trying to get ready with the lights off. Out of nowhere, it sounded like a bird was flying around towards me in the dark. I was ducking and trying to crawl to the light switch, which woke him up as well. As soon as the lights were on and there were no more sounds of wings. We searched everywhere in a tiny apartment setting, and found absolutely no birds or any other flying creatures. Turned the lights off, and the flying sounds returned. It never happened again after that morning, but 2 days later, one of his friends was killed at work, so that made that week very unsettling. Story 5. All right, I've got one that definitely fits. Actually, two, but one is super short, and so we'll go with that route. Are you all familiar with the game of The Sims? I'm referring to the original version, when they were still refining the details before it was ported to console, that one. Remember how when Sims would greet each other, they would say something like, "Sool, sool," or something? I was living with my wife at the time, right before we got married. Low-income housing was cheap, but it kept the rain off of our heads. She's taking a bath, and I'm sitting in there keeping her company while I was on call at my job, so I had to be available. The door is closed, only us in the apartment. We're just talking about whatever when suddenly we hear, clear as day on the other side of the closed door, simplistically, "Sool, sool." I, of course, rip open the door, but nobody is there. To this day I have no idea what it was, nor do I really want to know. Story 6. We decided to go camping as a group of our 4 friends before graduation, to do something one last time before we all went our separate ways in life. This is private property on the backside of a big forested hill, around where the creek flows in a huge, several-mile-long bend. Camp set up, fire going. Shortly after nightfall, my cousin and I sat on the creek bank, maybe 20 yards away from the camp, spotlight fishing in the water. We began to hear a rhythmic slosh of what sounded like someone wading through the water, maybe halfway up their shin deep, so we shone the light upstream. As we spotted this rhythmically consistent disturbance made by what looked and sounded like invisible feet or legs sloshing toward us. When we would turn the spotlight off, it would start. It would then stop when it was illuminated. It was reacting to us, and this was the first ice bucket moment that made us clench our stomachs. We knew this was not fish, and would not rationalize what was happening. This scared us pretty badly, but we decided it was best to keep it to ourselves and join the parties gathered at the fire. As we made our way back, we heard the sloshing and arrived at the spot on the bank where the noise stopped. Given the speed we witnessed it moving and how far it was from us when we were watching it, it must have accelerated to reach the bank we were on at the amount of time it took for us to return to camp. Others at the camp heard it as well, and figured we had either gotten in or somehow riled up the fish, but we just played it off. It sounded and looked like an invisible person wading towards us through the water. After the noise ended in the creek bank, we all saw the tall grass disturbed, as something unseen ran around the foliaged perimeter of our circular cleared campsite. This could have been an animal, but it moved too quickly. We then began to hear what sounded like a man talking to us, as in speaking into the ear of each person, the left ear, if that matters. At first it sounded garbled, then maybe after 15 or 20 seconds we could all make out the words saying, "We shouldn't be here," and "We need to leave," before finally addressing us directly and saying slightly more forcefully, "You need to leave." Obviously, this was terrifying, and at first we thought it was a person or a group of people approaching our camp, which is dangerous. We were all frozen with fear, but then adrenaline kicked in. As we freaked out and started to run for our ATV, all 4 of us saw a tall black shadow man wearing what looked like a hat, relaxing against the front of our ATV. It straightened up when we saw it, and it saw us. It just hung there, staring at us for a few seconds. No feet. The legs ended in wavy lines, like looking up at the fire and seeing the heat waves. It stood out against the light behind it. The girl screamed, which broke our fear, and we zipped like the flash back towards the train tunnels where people had died. Interestingly, when we attempted to start the ATV, it turned over sluggishly, as if the battery had been slightly drained. despite having worked fine just moments before when we wrote it. This entire event lasted approximately 5 to 10 minutes and occurred within an hour of sunset. After sharing our story, I received a lot of feedback from people who have also had negative experiences in this area over many years. Even a guy I worked with, who I don't know his name, but he knew the area, told me that my uncle had hired him to trap in the area, and it was the only place he didn't check traps alone at night. He said it was almost as if the animals left the place at night. No less than a month later, my uncle, who owns the property, was up on the hill raccoon hunting at night with a dog. At some point, the dog was up on a rock face above him and knocked a large rock loose that fell and struck my uncle in the side of the neck. This understandably messed him up pretty bad and paralyzed almost his entire body, but he still had very limited functionality on his left side. We could never figure out how he managed to get back to his ATV, turn it around, and drive himself out of there. It wasn't until probably 2 or 3 years later, around Halloween, when my story made its rounds to the local Facebook groups, and that my uncle texted my mother out of the blue. You have no reason to believe my uncle's character reference, but he is a salt of the earth, hunting, farming, working man, even working past his retirement as a millionaire. Honestly funny, just an incredibly stand-up guy. He is easygoing, yet no nonsense. In his text to my mother, he said, "I've never told anyone this before, and I probably won't ever again. The man in the hat the kid saw at the creek that night helped me pick me up off the ground and put me back on the ATV and got me turned around. Until I heard that, I had always assumed that the shadow man was the one trying to scare us out of there. However, thinking back on it, maybe he was the one whispering to us, telling us that we needed to leave and possibly avoid something scarier and more dangerous. However, I have no idea what could be more scary than that." Story 7. Honestly, my whole ass childhood was super haunted. Disembodied voices, thrown objects, toys that did impossible things. There were some doozies, but the one I'll share is in detail legit stands out. Still gets brought up at the odd holiday. Wouldn't blame anyone for not believing it. If I hadn't experienced it, I probably wouldn't believe it either. I'm in my 40s now, but when we were kids, something tried to drag my sister under the bed. I think I was around 10 at the time, but not entirely sure about the exact age. I can only guess based on the apartment we were living in at the time, since I know the time frame we lived there. My sister is 3.5 years younger than I am. We had been misbehaving one night. I honestly don't remember what exactly we had done to piss off our mom, but she had been threatening that if we didn't stop, the monsters would come and get us. Being the little a-holes that we were, we didn't stop. Finally, she yelled something along the lines of, "That's it, come and get them, monsters. You have my permission. I don't want them anymore." We got spooked by the yelling and ran off to our rooms. I remember we were just on my bed when it started. The door, which was maybe open halfway, swung shut, which caught both of our attention. Then the light clicked off, and almost immediately something grabbed my sister by the ankle and pulled, trying to drag her off the bed. She screamed. I grabbed her by wrapping my arms round her chest, below the armpits, and pulling her back with all of my strength, yelling for her mom. But it kept pulling, and my sister was crying for help. I started praying. I don't even remember what prayer, but a few seconds later it let go. Since I was using all my weight and strength to pull back and keep her on the bed, we all but flew backwards, but thankfully just landed on my back, still in the bed. But my sis was on top of me in my arms. As abruptly as it started, it ended. The light clicked back on, and the door frickin' opened itself again. We literally jumped off my bed to hers to the door, as if the floor was lava, and booked it out of the room so fast. Thinking back logically, or as logically as one can, given the situation, the whole thing probably lasted a minute and a half, but it felt like forever. Story 8. I posted about this somewhere on Reddit maybe a year ago, but I still think about this regularly. It actually happened a few years ago. There was a crack at our main bedroom, where we have repaired numerous times, but it keeps cracking. It's about 6 to 8 feet from where I sleep, and I can easily see it when I'm in bed. My husband, my dog, and I were sleeping, and the dog and I suddenly woke up. I saw the blackest, fattest bat with stubby little bat wings silently emerge from the crack, start flying towards me, and then bank off to the right and fly down under the floor where my dog jumped and tried to attack it. I have never heard my dog bark or act that way before or since this incident occurred. He acted like he was terrified, but still wanted to kill it. I thought I was dreaming at first, but the dog saw what I was seeing, and he was in front of me, so it couldn't have been that he was just reacting to whatever I was doing. He leapt off the bed and tried to dig at the exact spot I saw the bat disappear on the floor. We ran downstairs, but didn't see anything. It's tough to describe. There's no way this thing could actually fly in real life. It was like a black, overinflated football, and the wings were severely undersized. It was silent, but I could still hear movement, I guess. It was just magically appeared out of the crack, maybe a quarter of an inch wide, without damaging the crack. It only flapped its wings 3 or 4 times in total, and it casually banked the other way when the dog reacted. It knew I was awake, and was still headed right for me. I don't know what would have happened if it had gotten to me. That wasn't the first crazy thing that happened to me in that house. I hate living here, and my husband never believes anything. He couldn't see anything without his glasses, so he missed it. And then he explains it away by saying the dog and I had the same nightmare, or the dog was reacting to me. Story 9. I have seen something similar to what you're talking about. It wasn't flying when I saw it. My partner and I were in bed, watching TV and winding down for the night. One of our cats was laying at the end of the bed with us, between us, when there was a sudden commotion. It all happened so fast. So from right next to my leg, a round, black, chubby, frog-skinned looking thing with little legs that reminded me of a frog darted off the bed, and we both saw it and heard a loud thud. All 3 of us reacted to it. I asked my partner what the hell, and he said the same. I immediately looked at the end of the bed, expecting to see some creature running around, but nothing was there. It was perhaps a little smaller than a cantaloupe, but it sounded like it weighed more than it could hold. Story 10. Brought a fixer-upper home. We were in the process of gutting the kitchen and bath, along with other improvements. The backyard was very overgrown, so I mowed as much as I could before dusk. It was getting dark by the time I put the mower away. As I walked up to the back steps and onto the 3-season porch, I froze because looking back at me was a robust man with gray hair under a red cap, wearing dark blue dicky work pants, like tradesmen and service workers wore in the 70s. A plaid flannel shirt and a white t-shirt underneath, and red suspenders. He stood in front of where the former back entry door was. Torino, we moved the kitchen door to the other side of the porch. He had his hands on his hips and was surveying the area. When our eyes met, he smiled and kind of nodded his head up and down, seeming to approve of our renovations. Not gonna lie, it freaked me the F out. I looked away, and then he was gone. About 5 years later, our neighbor passed away, and their son moved in. When I met him, it was as if I recognized him from the energy I had seen on the porch. In conversation, a few years later, I told him about my experience, and how much the guy looked like him. I described what he was wearing, and we realized it was his uncle who built the home. Me? Did he wear suspenders? Him. Yep, red suspenders. This happened almost 25 years ago, and I remember it like it happened yesterday. I still love our home, and Mr. E is welcome any time. Shit like that doesn't scare me anymore. In my experience, seeing is believing, and the more you recognize energy for what it is, the more ability you have to see it. Well, there you go. Some of those are quite interesting. I gotta admit, those they're kind of cool. It's neat to hear other people's, telling of stories and that sort of thing. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like or a comment, share, subscribe. Go check out another video. That would be cool. If you are interested in coloring, like coloring books and stuff like that, go check out my Amazon author page. There's a link in the description of every video. New coloring books released every week. Just something to relax and enjoy yourself and calm down, that kind of thing. But there's also in the link some of the books I've written and kids stuff. But anyway, thank you again for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.